I'm Tom Vales. We moved up here from Connecticut in 1963. I've been in Stowe ever since. And my passion has always been science or electronics and mechanical stuff. And when electricity's first handshake, if you will, with man was in the prehistoric times in the form of lightning, which must have been a real scary thing because man had no scientific acumen at all. Okay, but in time, man learned how to deal with it. So we go from there, we go up to 300 BC in Greece when they were experimenting with another kind of electricity. And they found that if they took like a stick of rubber or amber and rubbed it with an animal skin, then took it away from the skin and put it towards little bits of leaves and grass and that it would pick them up. That was called static electricity. And the Greeks named it triboelectricity, which means from friction. So from 300 BC up till 1752, more research had been done, and they had machines that could make static electricity and so on. But in 1752, Mr. Ben Franklin did his famous experiment. He wanted to prove that lightning and static electricity were the same thing. So he flew a kite in an electrical storm. And as the story goes, he brought his fist up to the brass key and a spark jumped. And that proved his theory. Franklin did not have his kite hit by an electrical, a bolt of lightning. What happened was that there was a large charged field because of the storm cloud growing. And that had enough energy to jump to Franklin's fist. People were doing the same experiment in France and were getting killed. And lightning does not come from the cloud down. It comes from the ground up. You can't see it fast enough, but that's what happens. So Franklin was very, very lucky that he didn't get fried. Now, he was a lot of things. An emissary, a politician, a printer, a poet, an inventor, and a scientist. Three things that he invented, I can tell you, is the lightning rod, which is a big shock, bifocal glasses in 1752. This is not plastic. These are glass, and they have to be ground precisely. And the third thing is called Franklin's bells. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. These two bells, they don't have any clappers. And between them, there's a ball hanging on the end of a thread. So Franklin would take this bell, and he'd run a wire to ground. Then he would take this bell and run a long wire out of his house. Now, we don't have a thundercloud handy, so I'm going to use this machine here. This is called a Wimshurst machine. It was this is a replica. It was an early static generator. And as they progressed with this, they had them like 4 glass plates, 6 feet in diameter, for making serious voltage for use in the laboratory. So I'm just going to crank this thing up. Now I'm sure you can hear that. It's about 75,000 volts. Yeah, take my word for it, it hurts. So I'm going to hook this output to this bell. This is the storm. And let's see, it takes a little bit to get it going. Franklin invented the first electrical storm early warning system. 1752. Now, we make electricity in this country one of two ways. I mean, we use nuclear or coal or oil or whatever, but the mechanics of how the mechanics of how a generator works is very simple. It has a magnet and it has a coil of wire. You can either move the magnet through the coil of wire or you can move the coil of wire over the magnet. Generates electricity. And without going into all the peculiars, all right, so I'm going to take this magnet and I'm going to go through here slowly. Nothing happens. Now I'm going to try going through it quick. And most of you folks know what that was, a flash bulb. Today, the kids don't, everybody's got a pocket phone and all this stuff. They don't know what a 33 and a third RPM record is. So, I remember my father, we were going to my grandmother's, he wanted to take pictures and it was a cloudy day or inside. If he had 12 shots, he had 12 flash bulbs. And I think you can, if you can't see, afterwards you can come up and look at stuff. You see how this is kind of bulged out? Well, there's a reason for that. They explode. And they found that out the hard way. And then they covered it with a plastic cover to keep it from happening. And you never dropped a flash bulb in a wastebasket because you'd set fire to the paper. That's I love that one with the students. They just clear right out. Now, so we make electricity by moving a magnet through a coil or a coil over a magnet. And there was a fellow who came over here in the last half of the 1800s from Serbia, and he had very little money and a letter of introduction to Thomas Edison. He dug ditches in New York streets to earn money. His name was Nikola Tesla. He had over 700 US patents to his name. But his biggest gift was something we use all the time, and we don't even think about it. Alternating current. That, I mean, you take that away, and we're in the dark ages. You know, it's bad enough when you have a power failure, and you have no power for a day or whatever. If you're in Stowe, you have no water, you know, unless you've got a generator. But Tesla had come up with this, and as you can see, it took over. I mean, it's everywhere. It's used everywhere. But we really don't give it a thought. You come home, you turn on a light switch, you turn on the oven, you turn on the TV. You don't even think about it. You just throw a switch and there it is, you know? But what is electricity? Well, thanks to a very small subatomic particle called an electron. That's electricity. You push electrons through a wire. I mean, you need a battery or a power supply or something. As it's moving, there you have your things working for you. Electricity is a flow of electrons. That's really, if you remember that, that's all you really need to know. If they're not flowing, there's no electricity. Now, Tesla, with all his knowledge, he went to see Thomas Edison, and Thomas Edison said to him, I've got some dynamos on a ship that have to go out either tonight or tomorrow. They're not working. I'll give you $50,000 if you fix them. Not only did Tesla fix them, he made them better. Then he went to collect his money. And Edison said, you're misunderstanding, Mr. Tesla. In America, this is what we call a joke. That was it. Those two would never meet again. And honestly, I know Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and all that stuff, but I have no respect for him for some of the things that he did. And he was just a nasty old grouch. He had hundreds of people working for him. Tesla had one lab assistant. Now, Tesla went out to Colorado Springs in 1899, and what his dream was, not the alternating current, was the wireless transmission of energy. And he built a Tesla coil out there. The primary coil was 52 feet in diameter, and I don't know if it went up 100 feet or something. Well, he fired that thing up there. It put out sparks in excess of 100 feet, lit banks of light bulbs 25 miles away, and scared the ever-living daylights out of the residents of Colorado Springs. I mean, this was his thing, was wireless transmission of energy. And I'm going to show you that. And let's see, does anybody know where the lights are by any chance? If not, I mean, we can, oh, all right. I have a very small Tesla coil over here. Come on, where is it? I have two light bulbs in my hands here. No wires. Now, I'm not touching that. This is Tesla's dream. Wireless transmission of energy. All right, if we can get the lights back for a minute. Now, this is a four-pronged spinner. It just has nothing fancy, just metal. And we're going to stick that on here, and then we're going to turn it on again. And you have a motor. Now, let me see if I can get a couple other tubes here. All right. This is one of my favorites. It's one tube with two different colors, but it's the same gas in the whole tube. What does this is the fact that this is much smaller in diameter than this. This is a strobe tube out of an industrial All right, flip them up for a minute.
That's cool.
Thank you.
What's
Now,
in that tube?
well, I used to think it was xenon, but it's blue, and xenon is white. So I don't know, there's a mix of gases in there. Now this interesting item here works with a Tesla coil, and I can keep people away from the front door. This brass terminal comes down this wire to this light bulb, this wire to what I'm holding. So whatever comes out of that is going to go through me, and it's a few 100,000 volts. No sensation at all. But I'll show you one other thing. Watch the end of the pointer. You see what's happening? You have a spark coming off of that, and it's not touching the coil. That is what's called St. Elmo's fire. We can come up, yeah. What happens, why this thing goes out like that is, as it runs, it generates ozone and whatever, and it changes the loading on this. That's why I have to tweak it back and forth. But this, St. Elmo's fire, occurred on the masts of tall ships. The sailors, who are a suspicious, superstitious lot, would see these foot-long purple flames coming out of the top of the masts. That was the lightning cloud building up its charge, and bang, you had St. Elmo's fire. Also, it's been seen on the wings of airplanes and on the heads of Chilean in the mountains of Chile. So, a friend of mine said to me, he says, you know, we were trying to finish up 18 holes, and it was getting kind of dark, and I was walking down the fairway, and all the hair on my arm stood up. What did that mean? I said, you're damn lucky. You were in the charge, is what it, you know, if you want to be scared of lightning, that's fine. But don't be stupid. At least know what you're up against. I mean, I had an aunt that used to take her 2 dogs and herself into a closet when there was a lightning storm. And that's a very real, you know, fear. So I would never make fun of anybody, but it's like you're swimming in a lake and just your head is above the surface. And you figure, oh, I've got it knocked. As far as the cloud's concerned, that high point is your head. And the old wives' tale that lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place, that's a lot of bunk. The Empire State Building gets hit about 20 times a year. In fact, there's a forest ranger. He's been hit 7 times, and he won't quit his job. Yeah, he likes his job, you know, so he gets blasted. Now, some people that get hit by lightning, no problem. Other people, they could have neurological damage. They could, you know, have to be retrained how to eat, how to talk. Lightning is nothing you want to mess around with. It's just way too unpredictable. And here's a little aside. Phoenix, Arizona is the place to go if you like to take photographs of lightning. They have more lightning storms out there than anywhere else. Yeah, it's I try to stay out of the way of lightning. Now, let's see what else. Oh, now, Tesla, he made remote-controlled boats, submarine, for the armed forces. They weren't interested. They couldn't see He made a turbine that instead of running on steam, just runs on air, called the Tesla turbine. And I know guys that have built them, and they're surprisingly efficient. Back then, this country was wide open. Everybody was in science. And, you know, we had people making motors and all sorts of different things. And it was just, I would have loved to have been there because it was just all this stuff going on, you know. And now, here's an example of free enterprise. This is called a violet ray machine. These were still in use in Europe when the Berlin Wall came down. They have a different bunch of electrodes, and you'll see why they call them violet rays. And this is basically a Tesla coil here. This box provides the power, but this is the Tesla coil. And you didn't have to be a doctor to buy one of these. You could walk right into the drugstore or wherever and plunk your money down and no questions asked. This is for display. All right. This would be a master set. I'll figure out where that goes later. Each electrode had a specific, can everybody see this? Oh, wait a minute. I tell people, aren't you glad you're living today? This would be a large violet ray set. This is an electrode for the ear, the heart, the spine. This is for your eyes, like that. This is a full duration electrode, which was for burning off warts. This is a skin electrode, same as this one. That's for the hair, a comb. And here is something that they were also very big in. This looks like a moonshiner still. They were very big into what was called ozone inhalation therapy. Now, ozone is that smell they use as a germicide, maybe to keep, meat a little fresher. But the problem with ozone is that if you get too much of it in your lungs, it turns into nitrous acid, which is not good. But back then, there was no AMA, there was no OSHA, it didn't exist, so it was like free reign. So this is there's a tube inside the tube. You plug this into the Tesla coil and it generates ozone in here. Then you put some oil of eucalyptus on this wool, and what that does supposedly is it takes the nitrates out of the ozone. I don't know if it worked or not, but they would hook a bulb, a squeeze bulb, up here, and you would just take this and stick it up your nose and keep inhaling ozone. Not good. Not good at all. I set off the smoke detectors in my house one time with a coil I was running in the basement. It generated so much ozone I didn't even notice. And I had 2 friends that wound up in the hospital for a couple of days. Yep. But like,
What do you think they used it for? What do you think they used that for, the doctors or whatever?
oh God, they had books. You have a book that comes with one of these that would rival a car manual. Everybody, they had symposiums, they had meetings, they made a whole raft of different devices, but you know what? They did nothing. The only people that got cured were cured by the placebo effect. Brain says, oh, he took the pill, therefore he feels better. And doctors would, oh man, you should see some of these get-ups. They had electric beds, all kinds of just makes me shiver, because I have the male prostate electrode at home. I didn't bring that one. It's about this long. And it has a ball in the middle of it. That keeps it from going in too far. Somebody said to me, what happens if it breaks? I said, well, you get the exam for free and you get to keep all the pieces. Any doctor come at me with one of those, I'll tell you. Now, I'm going to it lights things up. There's energy there. And I know you can't see this, but it's purple. It's going, yeah, why don't you kill the lights and we'll...
You need a volunteer?
Yeah.
Volunteer my wife?
See? Now you take it and you use this. They put a little argon gas in here to give it that purplish color. All right, I guess we can come up with the lights. This set, the master violet ray, had 3 electrodes. Universal skin electrode, and this was for your throat. And the doctors were told well, everybody was told that read the manuals, whether or not they followed it. When you're gonna subject the patient to this, put it on the patient, then turn it on. Because you could get an inch spark coming out of that thing, and it stings. You know, it's and that, like I say, that was a bigger set. Something else I can do with this Tesla coil. Tesla coils were basically high frequency. This runs at 101 kilohertz. And at that frequency, you're probably wondering why I didn't fall over when I did this. Electricity has something that's called the skin effect. It travels over the surface of a conductor, not through it. And that's what's at play here. I'm at my friend's lab in New York, and I'm standing in the cage of death. And I could touch the inside of the cage and not have a problem. It stays on the outside. That coil is mean. It could put out over 20 feet of spark. And the color of the spark is an indicator to the power. The whiter the spark, the more power there is. This one, you notice, is like a purplish color. It's relatively low, relatively low color. This is an old light bulb. I can turn it into a plasma globe. All right, I think we can. Oh, all right, well, I'm going to have you do it again. This is a very special drinking glass. Yeah. And it stays, see, it quiets down because it's drawing energy. And when I pull it away, it gets louder. All right. Anybody want to take a guess at what this is? You're pretty sharp. How old did you say you were? 50?
Too old.
Oh, too old. Well, yeah, this is an electric Flyswatter. And I gave one to my hairdresser, and she went on a vengeful tour getting flies down in Studio 42. I couldn't believe it. You press the button, and there's a little green light that comes on. And then if you're a bug, that doesn't sound like much, but you don't want to have your hand across this and do it. But it'll vaporize a mosquito. And of course, some of the guys in the Tesla group decided to soup them up. So they made one that was superpower, and I said, how'd it work? He says, well, we caught a yellow jacket the other day and just turned it into a vapor trail. I said, good. What we have here are two solar motors. This is called a Mendocino motor because it was made in Mendocino, California over 20 years ago. And I was making these and selling them on the internet. I was selling hundreds of these things. Not all at once, you know, dribs and drabs. You have solar cells on the armature, and this thing is magnetically levitated. Okay, there is no bearings, but it's just now, here's something else that's going to make you feel real good that you're living today. This is a Fiestaware plate. Very popular in the 50s. They made a bunch, and they made a bunch of different colors. Blue, red, green, and they made this orange color, okay? And this thing, it's called a revigator, a radium ore revigator. These were very popular. They sold thousands of these things. A number of different people, you know, made them. And it would tell you, it tells you here, it puts the instructions right in the glaze. When you go to bed, you fill it with water. Upon arising, drink freely for the whole day. Okay? This is a Geiger counter. This is used to... Now, what you're hearing there has nothing to do with this. This is called the background count. Every day, 24/7, the sun is throwing all sorts of things at us. X-rays, gamma rays, magnetic storms on the face actually induce currents in structures here. And all this crap, it's, you know, ultraviolet, all thrown at us. That's what the ozone layer is there for. It takes care of a lot of this. So this is nothing. There isn't a place on Earth where there isn't a background count. So we'll start with this one. These got to be named radioactive red because the glaze used a uranium salt to get the color. Now, would this hurt you? Well, I suppose if you slept on it, but in your closet or in your cabinet or whatever, it's not going to harm anything. I wouldn't want to eat any acidic foods off it, like tomatoes, because it could leach some of the... Yeah, and this, oh God, I've got probably, I don't know, over 50 pieces of this. Everything from dinner plates to coffee pots to... I got chased out of a woman's antique store because I went in with my Geiger counter. And I went looking. And, oh, check this, right? Oh, yeah, that's hot. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just measuring your radioactive Fiestaware. That's a wives' tale. Well, I'd like to buy it. I'm not selling you anything. Get out of here. Jesus, lady, take it easy, will you? Now, this thing, what I didn't tell you about it is It is lined with radioactive ore, crushed uranium ore. And it's always decaying, okay? That's what radioactive elements do, is they're always decaying over time. But what happens here is there's some radium in here, the first product that radium degrades to is radon. And everybody pretty much has heard about radon. You don't want it in your house, yet it has a half-life of about 5 days. And what a half-life is, and this, I make this as non-technical as possible, if you had a piece of uranium at time 0, you have to go, it degrades. And when it degrades enough, you have a half-life. In other words, you started with a pound here, you've got a half a pound here, okay? But it's going to be with us for millions of years, so it's kind of like, people would be drinking this water, and it had radon in it. And when you get radioactive elements in your system, they go right for the bones. And it's, any radiation is too much radiation. You really shouldn't. Of course, I saw one of these up at Worcester Polytech when I took a tour through there, and I said, oh, I got to find one of these. But this didn't cure anything. If anything, it made things worse. Now, radium, when Marie Curie, after, they had gotten it, hospitals wanted it, scientists wanted it, everybody wanted it. Unfortunately, some hucksters got it, okay? This one guy was selling these little glass vials with a cork called Radithor. It was $50 or $1, Yeah, drink 5 of these a day. And no, not good, because there's radium in there, and if that gets into your bones, you're done. Let me think. Oh, have any of you heard about the dial painters? Okay, back in the 1900s, there were very few wristwatches. Most people used pocket watches. So these watch companies would contract what they call a dial house to make their dials. And they said, geez, if we mix radium something with zinc sulfide and activate it, it'll glow 24/7, and it does. So the girls from the ages of about, 16, maybe in their early 20s, would sit there, and they were paid to paint the numbers on the dials. And they were being paid piecework, okay? And don't forget, they're kids. They found if they tipped the brush between their lips, you give them a better point, and they could make a better looking dial. So they do that. Took about 2 years. At that point, it usually started with a tooth would fall out, or it would get infected. The dentist would yank it out, wouldn't stop bleeding. Parts of the jawbone would break off. They had that problem too with matches. When they made matches, they used white phosphorus and the amorphous kind, red phosphorus. And of course, these things are in vats, and they're being stirred, and the vapors are going up, and a lot of people got what they call phossy jaw, where the jaw would just go. So yeah, not one of those girls survived, unfortunately. I mean, being kids, they'd paint their ears or their teeth or their face and go out on a date, and they thought that was pretty cool. And these things, the companies were saying, well, we told them not to do that, right? Like, yeah, sure. And things didn't really get going till this woman, doctor, she went at this with a vengeance. And they finally got some things, in play. because we didn't have OSHA, we didn't have the AMA, we didn't have FDA, we didn't have any of that, and it was open season, you know, and you only got, people were dying. Of course, they didn't die right away, but over time. And there was some famous guy that swore by this stuff. Oh, he went. You know, radiation sickness is about the worst possible thing you can ever imagine to be sick. So, you know, stay out of Uranian mines. But the revogator, this was all tied into Ms. Curie's. Now, I got some things here that, you know, like I say, you can come up and take a look at these. I don't know how much you can see. But that's called the Lichtenberg figure, after Mr. Lichtenberg, who did the groundwork, if you will. In those days, they didn't have plastic. So he put powder on iron plates and then zapped it and got this type of thing. I was working with a professor at MIT, and I used to make these and give them out to the students. Used MIT's accelerator. So what you do is just take a piece of acrylic and you lay it down. You run it under the electron beam. It comes out, doesn't look any different. Now, you put it on an insulator and you take a grounded punch with a hammer and you put it wherever you want, okay? It's going to determine the shape, and in this case it was here. When you tap it, you don't have to hit it hard. When it breaks through the skin, there's a loud bang, flash of white light, and this is the path the electricity made leaving. They're like snowflakes. There are no two alike.
So is what happened is you had a big accumulation of electrons in that material?
Yep.
Repelling each other, and when you introduced the piece of metal, then you provided a path for them to escape.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yep. And if you look at this, you can see that on the edges of the, is like a razor sharp curve. Okay, it's just the way nature works. These things are, they're like snowflakes. There are no two alike. Yeah, I made a few hundred of these, and then the last batch I made, I decided to distribute them. So at stores and that I went in frequented, I give them out to the help. And they thought this was really neat. I went up to this one woman. Well, I'll tell you, we got to get better in this society. I handed it to her. I said, oh, here, this is for you. She backed up about 6 feet. But they're cool. And depending on the, well, like this one is triangular. So you have a different, but you still have the straight lines. And here was the point that it was hit. Let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. No, I guess I didn't. The shrunken money. Oh, one other thing. This is not electric. This is called a fiber optic taper. It's large here, it comes down to small here. When you put it on George, that way he fills the whole thing. He's much smaller here. It's just a neat device. The government,
Is it looking through the top?
yes,
Oh.
the government used those for some. You couldn't buy those for a while because they just didn't want to let them out. I don't know what they're scared of, but
Aliens.
alien. I'll leave my family out of it.
What determines the number of wraps of wire you put on the bucket? Like if you did half, would it still work?
No, you have to have the whole thing because it's tuned. That's what I do with that knob, is tune it. That's number 30 wire, about 9.5 inches. It took me 3 tries, but I finally got it. And the thing here is that this bucket is tapered. So you gotta know which end to start from. And I guess I didn't, because I just got to the end and I went to tie it off and the whole thing went right down. So now I just got a big, oh brother. Oh yeah,
That bucket though wasn't as big as it is. Okay, if it was smaller, less.
you have a whole different frequency. If it's smaller, less wire, as you change the amount of wire, you change the resonant frequency of the coil. Now, just to let you know that the violet ray did not go just with UV, or you see there's like 7 buttons on there. And the other thing they did, there was also a school of thought that said that, well, we used purple light Come on. Now that's more orange light. No, it's orange up here. This is another, so you get the radiation plus the light. And a lot of people died needless, terrible deaths because of what was going on. You know, you could go into the pharmacy and buy this. You don't have to be a doctor. And then you,
Will we make a sale on the Sears catalog?
the what?
Will we make the sale on the Sears catalog?
They're fascinating. It's quite interesting glasswork. This one, like I said, right here, and that is absolutely one of the worst places that you want to do that. Okay, but people believed what they were told, and you can read this on the internet. It's called The Radioactive Boy Scout. It's about this kid that was into radiation and so on. And basically, man, when the EPA caught up with him, they sent in guys in moon suits to take his workshop apart, piece by piece, put it into drums, because that's how much he was into making. And I got in a big argument with a buddy of mine. He says, "Oh, he's really smart." I said, "All right, I'll grant you, he's really smart, but he's about the dumbest SOB walking around. I mean, you know, you don't put people in that position." You know, and his mother said, "Well, we didn't think it was really odd when he got out of the thing at 2 in the morning and burned all his clothes. You didn't think that was different?" Jeez. Oh. Yeah, well.
What was your day job, or is this a hobby?
This is beyond a hobby. This is way beyond a hobby.
So you make a living from?
No,
selling
no,
these
I
things?
did these for, not anymore. I did these demos about 2.5 times bigger than what you see here, with a lot of other things that would talk about the characteristics of electricity and so on. I was working at Suffolk University for 11 years in the electrical engineering department, and then the dean that we had, this woman who had lead for a brain, said, electrical engineering doesn't, I don't see it in my vision. So they closed down the whole department. And then the department chair got into with this other school, Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, and they're going to take our whole department. Okay, we're basically a Bachelor of Engineering, and geez, I thought, well, we had to do a teach out by law. If any students are in the program and they want to continue, you can't close the program. You have to teach them out. So we had about 2.5 years. And with 3 weeks to go, and I'll tell you, this is what I was told, but I have a sneaking suspicion more went on. They said that the guy that ran the BFIT didn't like me. And I can't imagine that because I used to do my electrical demos down there, you know. So yeah, I'm unemployed. Unemployed. Wouldn't you know it, they go and make pot legal? Damn it, you know. There's another window of money closed.
What did you do prior to that?
To what? Suffolk?
Yes.
I've had, oh God, Class A machinist, R&D type stuff, electronic test and repair for Genrad, ran the Genrad X shop. That was the best job I ever had. You never knew what was coming in the door, you know, whether it was a repair or design something or, yeah, and that's what I do. I have a whole machine shop in my basement, and the rest of the house is like a yard sale. You laugh. You ever hear of Fibber McGee's Closet? Well, we're there. Always liked science, always. According to the family history, I was identifying electrical fixtures right around age 2. At 4, I started to make things. When I was 6, my father gave up and gave me a portable drill, you know, a pistol drill. And I heard him telling the neighbors, I don't know what the kid's doing down there. I hope he just doesn't blow the house up. And I've been, you know, that's my whole life has been science. And thing is, when I was doing this before, I was a bit younger. And it's not standing up and talking, it's moving all this stuff. And you can't just put it away. I mean, it has to go in relatively specific things. Some of this stuff I have is over 100 years old, and I've made a lot of this stuff, like the motor, the Franklin's bells, the coil and its driver, and a whole raft of other things.
Where'd you buy the BMD equipment there?
Oh, this?
Yeah,
Where'd I find it?
yeah.
eBay. I've got about 50 sets. Yeah, I know it's way gone, you know. It's, yeah.
There are these things that you can buy in the store, like a little bird. It sits in the window and it flaps
Yes.
its wings.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing as that thing going
Yes,
on there?
yeah, they're using a solar cell
Okay.
to power a little motor, and they put an eccentric on it so that it'll go up. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see those are little flower, you know, it's going like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's kind
It's
of
the same kind of concept.
Yep, same concept. I'm not sure if I want to get back into making those blast things, because a couple of the companies I used to deal with have gone out of business, and then it's trying to break in new, you know. But something will happen. Let's see. I think that's really about it. But please come up and look at this stuff. And thank you.